The obsidian palace of the Vrix Empire stretched across the sky like a massive black claw. King Deho stood at the highest tower, looking down at his domain. His empire controlled 47 star systems. His dragon form could destroy entire battle fleets with one breath of cosmic fire. Millions of beings across the galaxy feared his name, but none of that power could help his son. Prince Junho lay in a cold chamber 3 floors below. The boy was 7 years old and he had never walked. His legs did not move. His tail hung lifeless behind him. The scales that should have gleamed with royal purple were dull and gray. The doctors said it was a birth defect. They said nothing could fix it. They said the prince would never rule. Deho had tried everything. He brought the best doctors from every corner of the empire. They used advanced technology that could rebuild entire bodies. They used ancient magic that could cure any disease. They used experimental treatments that cost more than small planets. Nothing worked. Juno remained paralyzed from the waist down. The nobles whispered behind Deho's back. They said he should have another child. They said Junho was worthless. They said a crippled dragon could never be king. Some even suggested that Junho should be hidden away forever, forgotten like a shameful secret. Lord Taman, the king's chief advisor, brought these concerns to Deho almost every day. "Your Majesty," Taman would say in his smooth voice, "the empire needs a strong heir. Prince Junho cannot even stand. How will he lead armies? How will he inspire fear in our enemies?" Deho never answered these questions. He simply stared out the window, his jaw tight with anger and pain. He loved his son, but he did not know how to help him. Junho spent his days alone in his chamber. The servants who attended him were quiet and distant. They did their jobs without speaking to him. They fed him, cleaned him, and left. The other dragon children never came to visit. Their parents did not want them around the broken prince. Junho learned to expect nothing from anyone. He stopped trying to smile. He stopped asking questions. He simply existed day after day in his cold room. Then one day a human ship arrived at the palace. This was unusual. Humans were a conquered species. Earth had fallen to the Vrix Empire 15 years ago. Most humans worked as laborers or servants in the lower levels of dragon society. They were considered weak and primitive. Their technology was centuries behind. Their bodies were fragile compared to the mighty dragons. But Deho had heard something interesting. He heard that humans had something called physical therapy. On Earth, when people could not walk, other humans worked with them for months or years. They helped them move their bodies in special ways. Sometimes people who should never walk again learned to walk. The success rate was not high, but it was better than nothing. More importantly, Deho heard that humans refused to give up on their sick and injured. While most advanced species use technology to fix problems instantly or abandon those who could not be fixed, humans kept trying. They had something the dragons had lost long ago: stubborn hope. So Deho made a decision that shocked his entire court. He would hire a human to care for Junho, not a dragon doctor, not an alien specialist, a human, a member of the weakest species in his empire. The human who arrived was named Maid. She was 26 years old with dark hair pulled back in a simple tie. She wore plain clothes and carried a small bag of belongings. She did not look impressive. She did not look like someone who could achieve miracles. She looked ordinary. Lord Taman met her at the palace entrance. He looked down at her with obvious disgust. "You are the human?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Maid replied calmly. "My name is Maid. I was a physical therapist on Earth before the war." "A physical therapist," Taman repeated, his voice dripping with scorn. "You think your primitive human medicine can help the prince? We have tried technology that can regrow limbs. We have tried neural reconstruction that can rebuild entire nervous systems. What makes you think you can succeed where the greatest minds in the empire have failed?" Maid met his eyes without flinching. "I do not know if I can help, but I will try. That is what humans do." "We try," Taman laughed coldly. "Foolish creature. You will waste your time and hours. But the king has commanded it, so I will take you to the prince. Do not expect gratitude. The boy has given up on everything." He led Maid through the dark hallways of the palace. The walls were made of black stone that seemed to absorb light. Everything felt cold and empty. Finally, they reached Junho's chamber. Taman opened the door without knocking. The room was large but bare. There was a bed, a table, and a chair designed for someone who could not walk. In that chair sat Prince Junho. He was small for his age, his body thin from lack of exercise. His purple scales were dull and his eyes were empty. He did not look up when Mirai entered. "This is your new caretaker," Taman announced. "Another waste of the king's resources. Try not to get your hopes up, boy. She will fail like all the others." With that, he left, closing the door behind him. Mirai stood in silence for a moment, studying Junho. The boy still did not look at her. She walked closer slowly, not wanting to frighten him. Then she knelt down beside his chair so their eyes were level. "Hello, Junho," she said softly. "My name is Mirai. I am from Earth." Junho's eyes flickered toward her for just a second, then away. "I know what you are," he said. His voice was quiet and flat. "You are human. You are here to fix me. You will fail." "Maybe," Mirai agreed. "I might fail. But I am going to try anyway. Is that okay with you?" This surprised Junho enough to make him look at her properly. "Why would you ask me?" "Nobody asks me what I want." "Because it is your body," Mirai said simply. "I cannot help you if you do not want to be helped. So I am asking, will you let me try?" Junho stared at her. This human was different from the servants who ignored him, and the doctors who treated him like a broken machine. She was talking to him like he was a real person, like his opinion mattered. "What will you do?" he asked carefully. "I will work with your body every day. I will help you move your legs and tail in special ways. It will be hard. It might hurt sometimes. It will take a long time. But humans believe that bodies can change if we work with them patiently. I cannot promise you will walk. But I promise I will not give up on you." Something small flickered in Junho's chest. It felt strange and unfamiliar. Later he would realize it was hope. "Okay," he whispered. "You can try," Mirai smiled at him. It was a warm, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Thank you, Junho. We will start tomorrow morning. For now, tell me about yourself. What do you like? What makes you happy?" Nobody had ever asked Junho these questions before. He did not know how to answer at first. But Mirai waited patiently and slowly, carefully, he began to talk. He told her about the books he read. He told her about the view from his window. He told her about feeling alone all the time. Mirai listened to every word. She did not look bored or impatient. She nodded and asked questions. They talked until the sun set outside the window. When Mirai finally stood to leave, Junho felt something he had not felt in years. He felt less alone. That night, King Daeho came to check on his son as he did every night. He stood in the doorway, hidden in shadow. He watched Junho staring out the window with an expression that was not quite as empty as before. Daeho did not know if the human could truly help. But for the first time in 7 years, he saw something in his son's eyes that gave him hope. Maybe, just maybe, this strange human with her primitive methods could achieve what all his power and technology could not. He turned and walked away silently, leaving Junho to his thoughts and dreams of tomorrow. Mirai woke up early the next morning. She had spent half the night reading everything she could find about dragon biology. The palace library had detailed texts about the Vrix species, their bone structure, their muscle systems, and their nervous systems. She studied them all carefully, making notes in a small book she carried with her. Dragons were different from humans in many ways, but their basic anatomy was surprisingly similar. They had spines, muscles, and nerves just like humans did. The difference was in the details. Dragon nerves conducted signals faster. Dragon muscles were stronger and more dense. Dragon bones could withstand incredible pressure. But the fundamental principles were the same. If Junho's paralysis was caused by damaged nerves or weak muscles, then maybe, just maybe, the same techniques that worked on humans could work on him. Mirai knew she was taking a huge risk. She was not a doctor for dragons. She was not even supposed to be treating royalty. She was just a human physical therapist who used to work in a small clinic on Earth. But she had promised to try, and humans kept their promises. She arrived at Junho's chamber just after sunrise. The prince was already awake, sitting in his chair and staring out the window. He looked surprised when she entered. "You came back," he said. "Of course I did," Mirai replied, setting down her bag. "I told you I would." "Are you ready to start?" Junho nodded slowly. He looked nervous but also curious. Nobody had ever wanted to work with him before. The doctors had poked and scanned him, but they never really tried to help him. They just told him what was wrong and then left. Mirai pulled out a soft mat and spread it on the floor. "First, we need to get you down here. I'm going to help you, okay? She carefully lifted Junho from his chair. He was lighter than she expected, his body thin from years of inactivity. She placed him gently on the mat, positioning him on his back. Junho felt vulnerable lying there, but Mirai's calm confidence made him feel safe. Now, she said, kneeling beside him, I am going to touch your legs. I need to understand how your muscles feel and how your joints move. Tell me if anything hurts. She began with his right leg, her hands gentle but firm. She bent his knee slowly, testing the range of motion. Junho could not feel it, but he could see it happening. She did the same with his left leg, then moved to his tail. She worked methodically, testing every joint, feeling every muscle. She made notes in her book the entire time. Can you feel any of this? She asked. No, Junho admitted. I cannot feel anything below my waist. Mirai nodded, not looking discouraged. That is okay. Feeling might come back later. For now, we focus on movement. Your muscles are very weak, Junho. They have not been used in a long time. We need to wake them up. For the next hour, Mirai worked with Junho's legs and tail. She moved them through different positions, stretching and bending them carefully. She explained everything she was doing and why. She told him about muscle memory, about how bodies could relearn things they had forgotten. She told him about patients on Earth who had trained for years to walk again. Junho listened to every word. Nobody had ever talked to him like this before. Mirai treated him like an intelligent person, not a broken object. She asked for his input. She wanted to know how he felt. She cared about what he thought. When the session ended, Junho felt exhausted even though he had barely moved. Mirai helped him back into his chair and gave him water to drink. You did very well, she said with a smile. We will do this every morning. Over time, we will add more exercises. It will get harder, but I think you are strong enough to handle it. I am not strong, Junho said quietly. Everyone says I am weak. Mirai looked at him seriously. Junho, you have lived with paralysis for 7 years. You have been lonely and ignored. You have been told you are worthless, but you are still here. You are still trying. That takes more strength than walking ever will. You are one of the strongest people I have ever met. Junho stared at her, his eyes wide. Nobody had ever called him strong before. He felt something warm spreading through his chest. Was this what hope felt like? The next morning, they worked again. In the morning after that. In the morning after that. Every single day, Mirai came to his room at sunrise. She never missed a day. She never complained. She never gave up. After a week, she introduced new exercises. She brought special weights designed for dragon physiology. She had them custom made in the palace workshops, explaining exactly what she needed. The craftsmen thought she was crazy, but they built them anyway. After 2 weeks, she moved their sessions to the palace's thermal pools. The warm water helped relax Junho's muscles and made movement easier. She supported his body in the water, encouraging him to try moving his legs. He could not do it, but she never showed disappointment. She just smiled and said, "We will try again tomorrow." The other dragons in the palace watched these sessions with amusement and scorn. Lord Taman often stood at the edge of the pool, shaking his head. "A waste of time," he would mutter. "The human is playing games with the prince. Nothing will come of this." Other nobles made cruel jokes. They called Mirai the human who thinks she is a doctor. They called Junho the broken prince who believes in fairy tales. They laughed at both of them, but Mirai did not care what they said. She focused completely on Junho, and slowly, very slowly, something began to change. After 1 month of daily therapy, Junho thought he felt something. It was so faint he was not sure if it was real, a tiny tingle in his left leg. He told Mirai immediately. She tested his leg carefully, pressing on different areas. "Can you feel this?" she asked, pressing on his knee. "Yes," Junho whispered. "I think I can." "It is very faint, but I feel something." Mirai's eyes lit up with joy. "That is wonderful, Junho. That means the nerves are starting to wake up. We are making progress." She documented everything in her notes. She adjusted their exercises to focus on the areas where sensation was returning. She pushed Junho harder, but never too hard. She always watched carefully to make sure he was not in pain. After 3 months, Junho could definitely feel touch on his left leg. The sensation was weak and strange, but it was there. He could not move the leg yet, but feeling it was a huge step forward. Mirai celebrated by bringing him a special dessert from the human quarters. It was called chocolate cake, and it was the most delicious thing Junho had ever tasted. After 6 months, something incredible happened. During their morning session, Mireille was working with Junho's tail. She asked him to try moving it as she did every day. Usually nothing happened. But this time the tip of his tail twitched. It was a tiny movement, barely visible, but both of them saw it. Junho gasped. "Did you see that?" "Did I just move?" Mireille was grinning from ear to ear. "Yes, you moved your tail. Do it again, Junho, try again." He concentrated hard, focusing all his energy on his tail. It twitched again, stronger this time. Then again. By the end of the session, he could make his tail move several inches. It was not much, but it was movement. Real, voluntary movement. They were so excited that they did not notice King Deho standing in the doorway. He had been watching for several minutes, hidden in shadow. When he saw his son move for the first time in 7 years, something broke inside his chest. Tears ran down his scaled face. He left quickly before they could see him, but his heart was lighter than it had been in years. The progress continued. After 9 months, Junho could feel both legs. After a year, he could twitch his toes. After 15 months, he could bend his knees slightly. It was slow, painfully slow, but it was real. During this time, Mireille did not just work on Junho's body. She worked on his mind, too. She brought him books from the human library, teaching him about Earth's history and culture. She taught him mathematics using human methods, which were different from dragon methods, but just as effective. She taught him strategy games that helped him think in new ways. Most importantly, she talked to him. Really talked to him. She told him stories about her life on Earth before the war. She told him about her family, her friends, her dreams. She asked him about his dreams, too. What did he want to do? What made him happy? What kind of king did he want to be someday? Junho found himself opening up to her in ways he never had with anyone else. He told her about feeling worthless. He told her about the loneliness that ate at him every night. He told her his secret fear that even if he could walk, he would still not be good enough to be king. Mireille listened to all of it without judgment. "Junho," she said one day, "being a good king is not about being perfect. It is about caring for your people and never giving up on them. You already know what it feels like to be abandoned and forgotten. That means you will never do that to someone else. That makes you better than most kings already." King Daiho had started attending their therapy sessions regularly. He would come in quietly and watch from a corner. At first, Junho was nervous with his father there. But Daiho never criticized or interrupted. He just watched with an expression that Junho could not quite read. One day, after a particularly good session where Junho managed to lift his leg 3 inches off the ground, Daiho approached Mireille. The human stood respectfully, knowing she was in the presence of one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. "You have done what I thought was impossible," Daiho said quietly. "You have given my son hope. You have given him progress. How did you do?" 2 years had passed since Mireille first arrived at the palace. Junho was now 9 years old, and he was a different person than the broken child who had given up on life. He could feel both his legs completely. He could move his tail with control. He could bend his knees and curl his toes. He still could not walk, but everyone could see he was getting closer every day. The transformation amazed everyone who knew him. Junho smiled now. He laughed. He told jokes. He studied hard and showed intelligence that impressed even the strictest tutors. Most importantly, he had hope. He believed in himself because one human woman had refused to stop believing in him. But not everyone was happy about this progress. In the dark corners of the palace, someone was growing worried. That someone was Lord Siwu, King Daiho's younger brother. Siwu had always expected to inherit the throne. When Junho was born paralyzed, everyone assumed the boy would never rule. Daiho had no other children, which meant the crown would eventually pass to his brother. Siwu had spent years preparing for this. He had built alliances with powerful nobles. He had made secret deals with military commanders. He had positioned himself as the obvious next king. But now Junho was recovering. The broken prince was becoming whole again. If Junho could walk, if he could rule, then Siwu's dreams of power would vanish like smoke. He could not let that happen. He would not let that happen. Siwu met with his closest supporters in a hidden chamber deep beneath the palace. There were 5 of them, all nobles who had invested heavily in Siwu's future reign. They sat around a black stone table, their faces grim in the dim light. "The human must be stopped," said Lord Hyunwoo, a military commander. "The prince grows stronger every day. Soon he will walk. Then we will have lost our chance." "It is not just about walking," added Lady Suman, a wealthy landowner. "Daiho loves the boy now. He watches those therapy sessions like they are sacred rituals. He has changed since the human arrived. He talks about compassion and caring for the weak. This is not the king we knew. This is dangerous." Siwoo nodded slowly. "I agree. But we must be careful. We cannot simply kill the prince. Daiho would tear apart anyone who harmed his son. It must look like an accident." "What about the human?" asked Lord Hyunwoo. "She is the source of all this. If she dies, the prince will fall back into despair." "No," Siwoo said firmly. "If we kill only the human, Daiho will investigate. He will want to know why his son's caretaker suddenly died. He might discover our involvement. We need them both gone. And it needs to look completely natural." They plotted for hours, considering different options. Poison was too obvious. A random attack inside the palace would be investigated. They needed something that would seem like pure bad luck. Finally, Lord Hyunwoo suggested something. "The prince has never left the palace grounds," he said. "What, if we arranged an outing? A trip to the royal hunting grounds, fresh air, nature, a chance for the prince to experience the world outside his room. It would seem like a kind gesture. And the hunting grounds are dangerous. Wild creatures live there. Accidents happen all the time." Siwoo smiled coldly. "Perfect. I will suggest it to Daiho. He has been wanting to give Junho more freedom. He will approve." 3 days later, Siwoo approached the king with his suggestion. He played his part perfectly, acting like a caring uncle who wanted the best for his nephew. "Brother," he said warmly, "I have been watching young Junho's progress. It is remarkable. But the boy has lived inside these walls his entire life. Perhaps it would lift his spirits to visit the hunting grounds. The fresh air might do him good." Daiho considered this. Siwoo was right. Junho had never seen the forests or mountains that surrounded the palace. The boy studied maps and read about nature, but he had never experienced it. Maybe it was time to let him have that joy. "I will arrange it," Daiho said. "Thank you for the suggestion, brother." Siwoo bowed respectfully, hiding his smile. Everything was going according to plan. The day of the outing arrived. It was a beautiful morning with clear skies. Junho was more excited than Mirai had ever seen him. He had special clothes made for the trip, and his chair had been modified to hover over rough terrain. Mirai was excited too. She had been telling Junho about Earth's forests and mountains. Now he would see similar landscapes on his own world. King Daiho did not come with them. He had urgent business with foreign ambassadors. But he sent royal guards to protect his son. There were 10 guards, all heavily armed and trained. It should have been more than enough protection. The royal hunting grounds were vast, stretching for hundreds of miles beyond the palace. Ancient trees grew thick and tall. Mountains rose in the distance. Strange alien birds sang in the branches. It was beautiful and wild, nothing like the cold stone hallways Junho had known his whole life. Junho stared at everything with wide eyes. "It is amazing," he whispered. "Mirai, look at that tree. It must be 1,000 years old." Mirai smiled at his joy. "It is beautiful. I am so happy you finally get to see this." They followed a path deeper into the forest. The guards surrounded them in a protective formation. Everything seemed perfect. Everything seemed safe. Then it happened. Energy blasts suddenly screamed out of the trees. They came from 3 different directions at once, targeted directly at Junho's hoverchair. The assassins had been hiding, waiting for this exact moment. They were professionals hired by Siwoo and equipped with the most advanced weapons. The royal guards reacted instantly, but they were a second too slow. The blasts were going to hit Junho. There was no time to move him, no time to raise shields. In 1 second, the prince would be dead. Mirai did not think. She moved on pure instinct, throwing herself between Junho and the energy blasts. She crashed into his chair, wrapping her body around him like a shield. The blasts hit her instead, burning through her back and side. The pain was incredible, like being set on fire from the inside. She collapsed on top of Junho, gasping and bleeding. The prince stared up at her in horror, seeing the burns across her body, the blood soaking through her clothes. She had taken the hits meant for him. She had sacrificed herself to save him. Something broke inside Junho, something deep and primal. All his life he had been helpless. He had watched people hurt him and ignore him and abandon him. He had never been able to do anything about it. But not this time. Not Mireille. She was the only person who had ever truly cared about him. She had given him everything, and now she was dying to protect him. Rage like he had never known flooded through Junho's body. It was hot and pure and overwhelming. He felt his dragon blood awakening, felt power surging through him that he did not know he had. His paralyzed legs, which had never moved on their own, suddenly responded to his desperate need. Junho stood up. He rose from his chair for the first time in his entire life, his legs shaking but holding his weight. His scales blazed with bright purple light. His eyes glowed like stars. Power crackled around him like lightning. The guards and assassins all froze, staring in shock at the prince who was standing, who was burning with cosmic fire. Junho turned toward where the energy blasts had come from. He could sense the assassins hiding in the trees. He could feel their life force, and he wanted them gone. He wanted them destroyed for what they had done to Mireille. Dragon fire erupted from Junho's mouth. Not the small flames that young dragons usually produced. This was true cosmic fire, the kind that only the most powerful dragons could summon. It incinerated the trees where the assassins hid. It turned them to ash in seconds. The forest lit up like a sun had fallen to earth. When the fire faded, nothing remained of the assassins except scorched ground. Junho stood there breathing hard, his whole body shaking. Then his legs gave out. He collapsed next to Mireille, his hand reaching for hers. "Mireille," he sobbed. "Please do not die, please, you cannot leave me." The royal guards were already calling for medical help. One of them gently lifted Mireille while another supported Junho. They rushed back toward the palace as fast as they could. Junho refused to let go of Mireille's hand the entire way. She was barely conscious, her breathing shallow and labored. But she was alive. King Deho was in a meeting when the news reached him. A guard burst into the chamber, his face pale. "Your Majesty, the prince was attacked. The human is badly wounded." Deho moved faster than anyone had ever seen him move. He transformed into his massive dragon form and flew directly to where his son was. He found Junho covered in blood, crying, refusing to leave Mireille's side as human doctors worked on her. "Father," Junho gasped when he saw the king. "She saved me. She took the hits meant for me. And I stood up. I walked. I destroyed the assassins. But I do not care about any of that. I just want her to live." Deho stared at his son. The boy had stood. He had walked. He had unleashed cosmic fire. All the things that should have been impossible. But Junho was right. None of that mattered if Mireille died. "Get every human doctor in the Empire," Deho commanded. "Get every medical specialist we have. I do not care what it costs. Save her. That is a royal command." For 3 days, doctors worked on Mireille without stopping. The energy blasts had damaged her badly. Her human body was fragile compared to dragon scales. She had lost a lot of blood. Her organs were burned, but humans were stubborn. They did not give up easily. And Mireille was more stubborn than most. Junho stayed by her bedside the entire time. He did not eat, he barely slept. The trial of Lord Siwu shocked the entire empire. King Deho's own brother had tried to murder the prince. The evidence was clear and undeniable. Siwu had hired the assassins. He had arranged the outing. He had planned everything down to the smallest detail. When confronted, he did not even try to deny it. "The boy was never supposed to walk," Siwu said coldly during his trial. "He was broken. Worthless. The throne should have been mine. That human ruined everything with her foolish hope." Deho sat on his throne, his face carved from stone. Looking at his brother, he saw everything wrong with their empire. They had become so focused on strength and power, that they forgot to value life itself. They threw away anyone who did not meet their standards. They saw weakness everywhere instead of potential. "You are right about one thing," Deho said quietly. "A human changed everything. But she did not ruin anything. She showed us what we had become. She showed us that we had lost our souls somewhere along the way to building an empire." He passed judgment swiftly. Siwu and his co-conspirators were exiled to the furthest edges of the empire, stripped of all titles and lands. It was a mercy they did not deserve. Many in the court thought Daiho should have executed them. But the king had learned something from Mirai. Revenge was not justice. Taking lives was not strength. The news of Junho's recovery spread across the galaxy like wildfire. A paralyzed dragon prince who could now walk. A human who had succeeded where advanced alien medicine had failed. The story seemed impossible, but it was true. Medical institutions from hundreds of worlds sent requests to visit the Vrix Empire. They wanted to understand how this had happened. Scientists arrived from the Kellan Federation, known for their advanced medical technology. Doctors came from the Tarian Collective, masters of genetic manipulation. Researchers traveled from the Morphean Union, experts in neural reconstruction. They all wanted to study Mirai's methods. Mirai agreed to share everything she knew. She had nothing to hide. She showed them her notes, explained her techniques, demonstrated her exercises. The alien doctors examined everything with intense focus. They ran scans. They analyzed data. They discussed theories. And slowly they began to realize something humbling. Mirai had not used any advanced technology. She had not discovered some new miracle treatment. She had simply used basic physical therapy, combined with patience, dedication, and emotional support. Techniques that most advanced civilizations had abandoned thousands of years ago. Dr. Karen, a famous Kellan scientist, spoke for many when he addressed a gathering of medical professionals in the palace. "We have been fools," he said bluntly. "We became so focused on instant solutions that we forgot the simple truth. Bodies need time to heal, they need work and patience. But more than that, they need someone who believes in them." He gestured to Mirai, who sat quietly in the audience. "This human used methods that our ancestors knew. Methods we discarded as too slow and primitive. We thought technology could replace everything. But we forgot that healing is not just about fixing broken parts. It is about the connection between healer and patient. It is about hope and determination and refusing to give up. The humans never forgot this. While we were conquering the stars, they were perfecting the art of caring for each other." The speech caused intense discussion throughout the medical community. Some doctors were defensive. They argued that their advanced methods saved millions of lives. But others were more thoughtful. They recognized that in their rush to cure diseases quickly, they had lost something important. They had stopped seeing patients as people and started seeing them as problems to solve. The Empire Medical Council made an unprecedented decision. They invited human medical professionals to join their institutions, not as servants or assistants, but as teachers and partners. They wanted to learn from human medicine. They wanted to understand this thing called bedside manner that humans valued so highly. The political implications were enormous. If humans had medical knowledge that the Empire needed, then humans were not primitive creatures to be conquered. They were valuable partners. Earth's status within the Empire began to change rapidly. Ambassador Taiwan, who represented Earth in the Imperial Council, seized this opportunity. He approached King Deho with a formal request. "Your Majesty," he said, "my people have shown their worth. We ask that Earth be granted autonomy within your empire. We do not seek independence or conflict, but we wish to govern ourselves while remaining your allies." Deho considered this request carefully. A year ago, he would have refused without hesitation. Dragons did not negotiate with conquered species. But he was not the same king he had been a year ago. He had watched a human save his son's life twice. He had learned that strength came in many forms. "Your request is granted," Deho announced. "Earth will become an autonomous region within the Vrix Empire. You will govern your own planet, but we will share medical knowledge, trade freely, and protect each other. This is my decree." The announcement sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The mighty Vrix Empire, which had never shown weakness, was granting autonomy to a conquered world. Other empires watched carefully, wondering if this was the beginning of the empire's collapse. But it was not weakness. It was wisdom. And it all started with one human woman who refused to give up on a broken child. Junho continued his therapy with Mirai every day. Now that he had stood once, he was determined to walk properly. It took another year of hard work. There were setbacks and frustrations. Some days his legs would not cooperate at all. Some days the pain from exercising was almost too much. But Mirai was always there, encouraging him, adjusting his treatment, celebrating every tiny victory. Finally, on Junho's 11th birthday, it happened. He took his first independent steps. No support, no assistance. Just Junho walking across his room on his own 2 feet. Mirai cried tears of joy. Daeho, who had been watching from the doorway, could barely contain his emotions. "I did it," Junho whispered, looking down at his own legs in wonder. "I am walking." "You did it," Mirai agreed, hugging him tightly. "I am so proud of you." But walking was just the beginning. Now that the galaxy knew what had happened, Mirai found herself in an unexpected position. She was no longer just Junho's caretaker. She had become a symbol of what humans could achieve. She represented a different way of thinking about medicine and healing. Daeho appointed her as royal counselor officially, giving her authority second only to the king himself. He also funded the construction of the Junho Rehabilitation Center, named after the prince. It was massive, with facilities for every known species in the empire. Human therapists were brought from Earth to staff it. Dragon doctors trained alongside them, learning human methods. But Mirai did more than build a hospital. She started changing how the empire thought about disability and weakness. She gave speeches to medical schools. She wrote papers explaining human rehabilitation philosophy. She met with lawmakers to discuss better policies for citizens with disabilities. "In human culture," she explained at one such meeting, "we have a saying. A society should be judged by how it treats its weakest members. For too long, this empire has valued only strength. But true strength is lifting up those who struggle. True power is protecting those who cannot protect themselves." Her words resonated with many, especially among the lower classes. Common citizens who had hidden disabled family members in shame began bringing them to the rehabilitation center. Species from other empires requested human medical assistance. The change spread slowly but steadily. King Daeho watched all of this with a mixture of pride and sadness. Pride because his empire was becoming better. Sadness because it took a conquered human to teach him these lessons. He had been so focused on expansion and domination that he forgot what truly mattered. He began spending more time with Mirai, talking to her about human culture and philosophy. He wanted to understand how such a young species had developed such profound wisdom about caring for each other. Mirai was always patient with his questions. She explained about human history, the struggles that taught them compassion. She talked about how humans had survived not through individual strength, but through cooperation and community. "Your Majesty," she said one day, "dragons are powerful individually. One dragon can destroy a fleet. But humans are weak alone. We survive because we help each other. We carry the wounded. We feed the hungry. We teach the young. That is our strength. Not technology or weapons, but our refusal to abandon each other." Daeho thought about his own people. When had dragons last truly helped each other? They competed. They fought for dominance. They left the weak behind. They were powerful but lonely. Humans were weak but together. Which was really stronger? He made another historic decision. He created the Department of Social Welfare, the first of its kind in the empire. Its purpose was to help citizens who could not help themselves. The elderly, the sick, the disabled. It was modeled after human social programs that Mirai described to him. Many nobles protested. They said it was a waste of resources. They said the weak should fend for themselves. But Daeho was firm. If we cannot care for our own people, we do not deserve to call ourselves an empire. This will be done. Lord Taman, who had once mocked Mirai as a primitive human playing doctor, approached her one day with an unusual request. 5 years had passed since Mirai first walked into Prince Junho's cold chamber. The palace was different now. The dark hallways had been repainted with lighter colors. Windows had been opened to let in more natural light. Most importantly, the atmosphere had changed. It felt warmer, more welcoming, more alive. Prince Junho was now 14 years old. He walked with confidence through the palace, his posture straight and proud. His purple scales gleamed with health. His eyes shone with intelligence and kindness. Nobody looking at him would ever guess he had spent the first 7 years of his life unable to move his legs. But Junho never forgot those years. They shaped who he had become. Every morning he still did his exercises with Mirai, even though he no longer needed them. It was their special time together, a reminder of where they started. During these sessions they talked about everything: politics, philosophy, the future of the empire. "I am worried about the coronation," Junho admitted one morning as they stretched. "What if I am not ready to be crown prince? What if I make mistakes?" Mirai smiled at him. "Junho, everyone makes mistakes. Being a good leader is not about being perfect. It is about listening to your people, learning from your errors, and always trying to do better. You already know how to do all of that. You will be there to advise me, right?" Junho asked. "I cannot do this without you. I will always be here for you," Mirai promised. "But you are stronger than you think. You do not need me as much as you believe you do." The coronation ceremony was scheduled for the end of the week. Junho would officially become crown prince, heir to the throne of the Vrix Empire. It was a huge celebration, with representatives from hundreds of worlds traveling to attend. The palace buzzed with activity as everyone prepared. King Daiho had changed dramatically over the past 5 years. The ruthless conqueror who had once ruled through fear alone was gone. In his place was a wiser, more compassionate leader. He still commanded respect and power, but now he also inspired loyalty and love. His people no longer just feared him, they believed in him. Much of this change was because of Mirai's influence. She had never tried to change him directly. She simply lived according to her values, and Daiho learned by watching her. He saw how she treated everyone with respect, from the highest noble to the lowest servant. He saw how she never gave up on difficult cases at the rehabilitation center. He saw how she found joy in small victories and maintained hope during setbacks. The Junho Rehabilitation Center had become famous throughout the galaxy. It was not the largest medical facility, but it had the best reputation. Patients who had been told they would never recover came from across the empire and beyond. Human therapists worked alongside alien doctors, combining different medical traditions to create something new and powerful. The center also became a training ground. Medical students from dozens of species came to learn human rehabilitation techniques. Mirai personally taught many of these classes, emphasizing that technical skill was important but compassion was essential. "You can have all the knowledge in the universe," she would tell her students, "but if you do not care about your patients as people, you will never truly help them heal." One of her best students was a young dragon named Jion. She had come from a poor family and faced discrimination because she was female. In traditional dragon culture, males held all the power. But Mirai saw potential in Jion and mentored her carefully. Now Jion ran the center's pediatric wing and had helped hundreds of children who might otherwise have been abandoned. "You changed my life," Jion told Mirai one day. "Before I met you, I thought I had no future. Now I am helping others find theirs. That is the greatest gift anyone could give." Mirai hugged her student warmly. "You did this yourself, Jion. I just gave you an opportunity. You had the strength and determination all along." Stories like Jion's happened every day now. The empire was slowly transforming, one person at a time. The changes were not always smooth. Many traditional dragons resisted. They complained that the empire was becoming soft, that focusing on the weak would make them vulnerable to enemies. But King Daiho stood firm. "Strength is not about crushing the weak," he declared in a famous speech. "Real strength is protecting them. An empire that abandons its own people is not powerful. It is cruel and foolish. We will be better than that." Earth's relationship with the empire had evolved significantly. What started as autonomy had become a true partnership. Human engineers worked with dragon scientists on new technologies. Human artists collaborated with alien musicians. Human philosophers debated with dragon scholars. The exchange of ideas enriched both cultures. Ambassador Taewon had negotiated several important treaties. Humans could now travel freely throughout the empire. They could own property, start businesses, and hold government positions. It was not complete equality yet, but it was progress. Real, meaningful progress. "We are building something new," Taewon told Mirai during one of her visits to the Earth delegation. "A multicultural society where different species learn from each other instead of dominating each other. It is not perfect, but it is better than what we had. And it started because you refused to give up on one child." Mirai felt uncomfortable with all the praise she received. She did not think of herself as a hero or a revolutionary. She was just a physical therapist who did her job. But she understood that symbols mattered. Her story had inspired millions. If people needed to see her as a symbol of human determination, she would accept that responsibility. The day of Junho's coronation arrived. The throne room was filled with dignitaries from across the galaxy. Beings of every species, size, and color packed the massive chamber. Everyone wanted to witness this historic moment. The paralyzed prince who learned to walk would now become crown prince of the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Junho entered the throne room walking steadily, his head held high. He wore traditional royal robes that shimmered with purple and gold. Behind him walked Mirai, dressed in formal human clothing that had been specially designed for the occasion. She wore a badge showing she was royal counselor, advisor to both king and prince. King Daiho stood from his throne as Junho approached. The entire chamber fell silent. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. Prince Junho, Daiho said formally, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. 7 years ago, I believed I had lost my heir. You could not walk. You could not fulfill the duties of a prince. I was wrong. You have become everything I could have hoped for and more. Not because you can walk now, but because of who you are inside. You are kind, wise, determined, and compassionate. You will be a great king someday. He placed the crown prince circlet on Junho's head. It was a simple band of platinum with a single purple jewel, but it represented something enormous. Junho was now officially the heir to the throne. Then Junho did something unexpected. He turned to face the crowd and began to speak. This was not part of the ceremony, but nobody interrupted him. Thank you all for coming, Junho said clearly. I know many of you are here because of my story, the broken prince who learned to walk. But I want to tell you the real story. The story of a human named Mirai who saw value in me when nobody else did. The story of a woman who refused to accept what everyone said was impossible. The story of hope winning against despair. He gestured for Mirai to come stand beside him. She did, looking slightly embarrassed by the attention. Mirai taught me that disability is not weakness, Junho continued. She taught me that needing help does not make you worthless. She taught me that real strength is trying again after you fail. These lessons changed me, but more than that, they changed my father. They are changing our entire empire. He looked out at the diverse crowd before him, dragons, humans, and dozens of other species all listening to his words. I make a promise to you today, Junho declared. When I am king, I will rule with the same compassion that Mirai showed me. No citizen of this empire will be abandoned because they are sick or disabled or different. Everyone will matter. Everyone will be valued. Everyone will have hope. This is my vow to you. The throne room erupted in applause. Some people were crying. The emotion in the chamber was overwhelming. This was not just a coronation. It was a declaration of a new era. After the ceremony, there was a great feast. Representatives from hundreds of worlds mingled and celebrated. Junho moved through the crowd, speaking with everyone, showing the diplomatic skills he had learned. He was comfortable now in ways he never would have been if he had remained isolated in his chamber. Mirai found herself surrounded by medical professionals, wanting to talk about the rehabilitation center and human techniques. She answered questions patiently, always redirecting credit to her colleagues and students. She had never been comfortable being the center of attention. King Daiho watched all of this from his throne. He saw his son thriving. He saw species from across the galaxy coming together in friendship. He saw hope where there had once been only conquest and domination. And he knew it was all because of one brave human who had refused to accept defeat. He called Mirai over to speak privately. They stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant colors. Mirai, Daiho said quietly, I have been thinking about the future. When Junho takes the throne, he will need advisors.